You know what I hear all the time?
You just need to work on your positioning.
And yeah, that advice sounds good on paper, but if you've ever been in the middle of a match, you know it's not that simple. One second you feel fine, and then the next you're just way too far forward, or cut off from your team, or maybe just stuck in the corner with nowhere to go. Here's the thing most people don't realize. Bad positioning isn't just about standing in the wrong spot. It's about the decisions you made before you even got there in the first place. Every single fight is like a chain of choices. How fast you rotated, which path you took, when you committed, whether you burned a cooldown too early. By the time you're in the wrong spot, the mistake already happened a few steps earlier. That's why it feels so frustrating when people just say,
Oh, just position better.
because it's not like you woke up in the morning and thought, oh, you know what, I'm going to stand in the dumbest spot possible today. No, you got there because of small decisions that stacked up. And those decisions weren't obvious in the moment. You see, the best players don't magically have perfect positioning. They just see the map differently. They're already thinking a few steps ahead. You know, not just the where am I right now, but where do I need to be when the fight actually breaks out. They recognize when a push is forming, when an angle is closing, and when a rotation is too risky. And by the time the average player realizes that they're out of position, you know, a better player already saw it coming and adjusted. So if you've been told your positioning is bad, you know, don't beat yourself up over it. Like, it's fine. It doesn't mean you're clueless. It just means you're focusing on the wrong part of the problem. Today, we're going to break down why you keep ending up out of position, what's really happening in those moments, and how you can start fixing it before the mistakes ever snowball. Because positioning isn't just about standing in the perfect spot. It's about preventing yourself from being in that bad spot to begin with. So let's talk about the real reason why you keep finding yourself out of position. And spoiler alert, it's not because you don't know where the good spots are. Most players already know the basics, you know, just stick with your team, don't overextend, just hold cover, you know, all that. You guys already know this. But if you know those things and you're still getting caught out, then the issue isn't just about the knowledge. It's timing and awareness. Here's what I mean. Positioning is a living thing. The spot that's safe right now could be a death trap 5 seconds later. And depending on how the fight develops, the difference between a good player and a great one is how quickly they recognize when a safe position is about to turn bad. And that shift usually happens before you even notice it. Think about the last time you were suddenly collapsed on. You probably thought, you know, where did they even come from? But the truth is, the setup was happening long before you got punished. Maybe you used a cooldown to chase a kill and you just couldn't escape. Maybe you tunneled on a duel and didn't see the flank rotating. Maybe you were holding high ground, but your team rotated without you, and now you're stranded. None of those mistakes feel like a bad positioning in the moment, but they all set the stage for it. This is why telling yourself, oh, I just need to stand in a better spot, doesn't actually fix anything. Positioning isn't just about a single decision you make, it's a chain reaction. You're not getting punished because you chose the wrong corner to stand in. You're getting punished because 3 decisions ago, you locked yourself in a path where the corner was the only option left. So if you really want to improve your positioning, stop focusing on where you're standing right now and start looking at 5 seconds before. That window, those small little micro choices leading up to the fight, is where good positioning is either made or broken. So now the big question is, well, how do you actually stop this from happening? If bad positioning is the result of earlier mistakes, then the answer isn't just standing somewhere else, it's learning to recognize the setup before it punishes you. So the first thing you need to do is zoom out. Most players lock their crosshair, their aim, and even their thoughts onto whatever's right in front of them. That tunnel vision makes you blind to the bigger picture. Great players constantly check their surroundings, not because they're paranoid, but because they're tracking how the fight is evolving. They're asking, you know, where are my teammates? Where's their front line? Who's missing from the map? What space is about to collapse? That constant scan is what tells them when to rotate before it's too late. Secondly, you have to start respecting cooldowns, both yours and the enemy's. Now let's be honest, a lot of the times you get punished, it's right after you used an ability to chase or to poke. Maybe you dash forward, maybe you blew your mobility cooldown, maybe you blew your cloak and dagger bubble, maybe you dropped your safety tool. The second you do that, your positioning instantly becomes weaker. Even if you're standing in the same exact spot, the pros understand this. They know their positioning is never as static. It's tied directly to what resources they and their opponents have available. And here's the last piece. Think in terms of rotations, not just random spots. A lot of players treat positioning like it's a chair. Once they sit in it, they're good. But fights are fluid. Space shifts constantly as players move. Ultimates come online or health bars get chipped. The best players don't ask, where should I stand? They ask, where do I need to move next? That fast forward mindset thinking keeps them one step ahead of the collapse that catches everyone else off guard. And the truth is, positioning isn't about finding a perfect spot and camping it. It's about developing the awareness to feel when your current spot is decaying and rotating before the punishment comes. If you can start thinking about fights like that as shifting puzzles instead of static setups, you'll notice that those moments where you feel caught out start to happen less and less and less and less. So let's put all this into perspective. Think about the last time you died and instantly thought like, dang, I was kind of out of position there. In that moment, it feels random, like you just happened to get caught. But if you rewind that situation in your head, there were signs long before the punishment landed. Maybe you, again, dash forward chasing damage and suddenly realize your support was 2 walls behind you. Maybe the enemy tanks started walking forward and instead of rotating with your team, you stood your ground for a second too long. Or maybe you saw an enemy use their ultimate and you didn't respect what it meant for the space you were holding. Whatever the case is, the collapse didn't come out of nowhere. It built up piece by piece until you were the one stranded. And here's where most players get it wrong. They think fixing positioning means memorizing certain spots on the map, like, oh, I'll just stand here next time and I'll be safe. But that's just not how it works. A good position can turn into a bad one in the blink of an eye, depending on, again, what cooldowns are available, who's rotating, and where are my teammates. That's why the best players almost feel like they always have that sixth sense. It's not about, they just don't magically know the right spot. It's that they can feel when the pressure is shifting and they move before the collapse actually happens. And the funny part is, once you start seeing positioning this way, it stops being about where you are and starts being about how connected you are to the flow of the fight. You stop thinking in terms of corners or choke points or high ground, and you start thinking in terms of timing. And once you do that, you'll notice your gameplay feels way less stressful. Instead of scrambling to survive after the collapse, you're already rotating, already in the next safe space, already setting up for the next fight on your terms. That's the difference between players who constantly feel caught out and players who always seem calm and unshakable. It's not mechanics, it's not raw talent, it's the ability to read the fight early enough to stay one step ahead. So again, positioning is not about standing in the right spot, it's about reading the game. Again, if you're only realizing you're out of position after you've already died, then again, you're just too late. Think of it like this. Your positioning is really just a reflection of your awareness. When you drift too far forward without realizing your team isn't with you, that's not a mechanical mistake. When you stand still for a second too long while the enemy starts to collapse, that's just not bad luck. Those are awareness gaps, and the good news is awareness can be trained. Every fight is like a puzzle, and positioning is how you fit yourself into it. The players who always feel safe aren't lucky, and they're not guessing. They're constantly checking the state of the fight. Again, it's as simple as where are my teammates? What cooldowns just got used? Which side of the map feels heavier with the pressure? The more often you ask those questions, the less you'll feel like you're randomly caught out. And this is why so many players stay stuck. They keep thinking, if I just aim better, I'll win more fights. But the reality is, your aim doesn't even matter if you're out of position before the fight begins. You can have the cleanest mechanics in the world, but if you're standing where you shouldn't be, then what's the point? The key takeaway is this. Positioning isn't a spot, it's a process. It's the habit of constantly realigning yourself with the flow of the fight. If you can build that habit, you'll start noticing something crazy. You stop dying in the most random ways. You stop feeling like you're always caught off guard. And suddenly the game just feels slower, calmer, and you're more under control. That's when you know you're not just surviving fights anymore. Like, you're shaping them. Okay, so with all that being said, at the end of the day, fixing your positioning isn't about memorizing the perfect formula. It's about slowing the game down in your head and realizing you always have more control than you think. The fights that used to feel chaotic start to feel predictable because you're not reacting late. You're already in the right place before it even begins to break out. And once you start noticing that shift, you'll realize it was never about your aim or your mechanics or sheer luck. It's about, again, awareness. Positioning is just a viable result of whether you're paying attention or not. And once you start building that awareness, everything else in your game starts to fall into place. So if you stayed this long, I appreciate you checking out the video, and I'll see you in the next one. Have a great day, y'all.